Hey, Steve Stine from GuitarZoom here. I'm glad to be back at Flatland Guitar with Paul, my buddy Paul, here in Fargo, North Dakota. And today, Paul is going to be talking to us about purchasing your first electric guitar, some of the do's and don'ts and what to look for, that sort of thing. And I think this would even work even if you already have a guitar, but you really don't know what you're doing. Maybe you have an acoustic and you're upgrading to an electric and you kind of want to know some things, or maybe somebody borrowed you a guitar and you're kind of looking at what you should be purchasing. So anyway, thanks, Paul. It's nice to see you today, buddy.
As well.
So let's just start off, just kind of, you being a store owner. What would you suggest?
First thing you always want to look for is what kind of budget do you have in mind. Obviously, if you're buying your first guitar, you're not sure if you're going to stick with it or if it's what kind of guitar you want. Do you want, once you get comfortable with that guitar in your hands, you can kind of go from there and decide what best suits you.
Sure.
When you're looking for your first guitar, I'd just suggest anything within a reasonable budget that fits what you can afford. And then there's lots of different packages, or you can build your own package, just depending on what you want, what's going to best suit your needs.
Sure. Needless to say, I mean, the difference between acoustic and electric guitar is that with an electric, you're going to have to look at an amp, you're going to have to look at a cable, there's all kinds of other things, but those are really the three mechanisms you need to get started. With an acoustic, you just have the guitar. With the electric, you need those. So, as he's saying, obviously it's up to you to decide whether or not you'd want to buy them separately or whether or not you would buy them all together. So let's just go ahead and get started and see where we go.
I'm just going to grab a guitar here real quick, and just kind of as a good example of a beginning style guitar, you can go into, this is probably your most commonly seen guitar shape that you're going to find. It's a Strat style guitar.
Sure.
And these are probably your most popular beginning guitars.
And when he says Strat style, he's talking about the body style being similar to what's called a Fender Stratocaster. Yep. So there are many different body styles, but there are many styles that are based off this. So you can always do a search for a Fender Stratocaster and see what that body style is. And
then you're going to want to look at the guitar, hold it, make sure it's comfortable. It can sit in your lap right. There's a lot of guitar shapes out there that are a little funky. I wouldn't suggest that for your first guitar, because then you're going to be wondering how to hold the guitar.
Sure.
It's going to fall out of your legs, and they're just weird shapes and stuff. These are really comfortable guitars. That's, it's a reason they're probably the most popular body style out there, is they are a comfortable guitar.
Right. It sits, the Strat style that he's talking about sits really nice on your leg when you're sitting down. You'll notice that he's holding it, we're both right-handed, so we're playing the guitar that direction, and it's sitting on his right leg. He doesn't have it on his left leg. It's sitting on his right leg, and it's balanced. Some guitars tend to be really heavy in the back, like the body will get really, really heavy, that sort of thing. And then you not only are you playing it, but you're kind of holding it while you're playing it, where this Strat style body tends to be very balanced from the neck, the weight of the neck and the weight of the body, so it just sits really nice on your leg.
Yeah. And you have all the different pickup configurations and all that kind of stuff. When you're first starting out with your guitar, you really don't worry too much about what those pickups are going to do.
Yep, these are the pickups, by the way.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And they do just that. They pick up the sound of the string.
Send it through the cable, send it to the amp is what happens.
But when you're first getting used to playing guitar, it's fun to be able to play around with some different sounds and stuff like that. But the most important thing is that you have a guitar that fits you comfortably. You can reach the end of the fretboard and sit comfortably with the guitar in your lap.
And we'll probably talk about that a few times while we're discussing these things. But it's really important to understand that it's very easy to get caught up in the details. When you first buy a guitar, like he's talking about, like this one has 3 pickups. When you first buy your guitar, I think we would both agree that it doesn't really matter whether you have 3 pickups or 2 pickups or what kind of pickups are in there. Yeah, what he's talking about is the single most important thing, which is, number one, it fits into your price range. I guess 2 things. Number one, fits in your price range, and number 2, comfortability. It's got to be comfortable. When you sit down and you grab that guitar and it sits on your leg, it should feel fairly comfortable. If you've never really played before, you probably don't really know what comfortability is. And that's why worrying about stuff like this is really irrelevant. It doesn't make any difference at this point. Once you start learning how to play, and you're seeing what other people use and why they use them and why you'd want different pickups or different things like that, then you can move on the bump up guitar. The upgrade is where you're going to start worrying more about that kind of thing. So don't sweat all that, you know. I always use the analogy, like for me, I know nothing about vehicles. So for me, you know, the difference between a Chevy and a Ford makes no difference to me whatsoever. Or there's somebody else out there that's going to holler at me for saying that because it makes all the difference in the world to them. It really doesn't make any difference. And so let's go into that before we change body styles in that. Let's talk about brands, right?
In the beginning market, there's a ton of different brands out there. You're going to see within a certain price point, say like this guitar is $150. In that price point, you're going to see 100 different names. There's a lot of different ones out there that are really good in that price point, and there's a lot of ones out there that just don't really cut it. And it doesn't necessarily matter what the name on the headstock is. There could be 5 guitars just like this, different names on the headstocks, all came out of the same factory, just have a different screen printed on the headstock.
That is absolutely true.
So, name on the guitar. If it's your first guitar, you're just getting going. I don't necessarily tend to worry about that too much.
Do you find, Paul, that like the brand names that we always think of, like Fender, for instance, you know, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I own Fenders as well and love them, but is it possible that when you buy your first guitar, you might have Fender on the headstock and it actually makes it better, or does it sometimes just make the price go up a little bit because it's possibly a Fender?
Generally, its price goes up a little bit.
Yeah.
You were kind of buying a name.
Sure.
You know, and nothing wrong with that.
No.
You know,
I mean, that's the way the world works, but just to be aware of that.
Yeah. This is, and the Fenders you're going to find in this price point are going to say Squire on the headstock. Those are great guitars. A lot of those, and again, like I said before, a lot of those guitars are coming out of the same factory. They're just putting a different name on the headstock.
Sure.
So I don't. When you get into a beginning style guitar, you're just trying to get yourself acquainted with the instrument, get yourself so you can fret the notes and feel how the strings are going to work for you.
Right.
Get your fingers used to playing a guitar.
Right. I will use the analogy. My daughter is 14 years old, and we're looking. We have a while yet, but we're looking at a vehicle for her, and it would be the same sort of thing. What she thinks she needs and what I think she needs are two completely different sorts of things. I need whatever she gets to be safe and reliable, and again at a decent price. And so when you're looking at your first guitar, it's really important to think about that. Don't just get stuck in, well, it's this brand or this brand. Worry about that stuff further down the line once you really know what you're kind of looking for.
Yeah, because your playing style is going to change maybe, or the type of music you get interested in. That's something you can look for in even in a beginning guitar. So say you're a real big fan of blues or blues rock style music, this is a great guitar for that. And a lot of blues players use a Strat style guitar.
You bet.
So this guitar would function wonderfully for that.
Sure.
And this is also just a single guitar all by itself. They make, I don't know if you want to jump in.
Sure.
To that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So when you're looking at beginning guitars, you have the guitar as your main priority, but you need to plug that guitar into something too. So you have amplifiers to worry about, which would be, you know, this little guy here would be a good beginning style amplifier. And again, you don't need to spend a ton of money on your first amplifier. You're not going to be taking it out on stage for a while. So you just want something that's going to sound good, and it's nice to get a lot of different variety of tones out of there, but when you're just getting going, you're probably going to use 1-2 settings on the amplifier.
Right. And most of these little amps will have, you know, 2 settings. Usually you're looking for like a clean sound, and then what we call a crunch or distortion sound for like rock stuff. And pretty much all the amps are going to offer those things. You know, we could make a 5-hour course on amps themselves, you know, and guitars themselves. The trick here is for you to understand that, you know, you're going to spend X amount of money on a guitar, and you're going to spend X amount of money on an amp. Now, do you need an amp? Well, you know, you could use some sort of headphone system, or, you know, you can buy these little mini amps and things like that. There's a whole host of things out there that you could do. You know, the thing you have to keep in mind, like when I was a little kid, I had this thought in my mind that my amp needed to be, I'm a small guy, and the amp needed to be roughly the same size as me. And the problem with that is they get stinking heavy. They're not easy to move around with. You know, you gotta make sure that you've got room in the back seat that fits this hog of an amplifier. It's nice to have something small when you first start playing, just to get comfortable with things. And just like he was discussing with the differences of the guitar, the amp is going to make a huge difference in terms of the sounds that it creates and the things that it does. You know, it can create different kinds of effects and all sorts of different things. But that's all stuff, again, you should be worrying about further down the line once you understand what you're actually kind of looking for. Mm-hmm. So,
and a lot of the beginning amps now, generally looking in the $100 range. So, you know, like for example, we have a $150 guitar, $110 amp, and then you get your cable, you're in that $300 range.
Sure.
You're looking to spend to get started in guitar. They have package deals out there, which you're going to spend $250 to $350 on a package deal, which is going to come with a guitar, a gig bag, a cable, all the stuff that you need to get going. However, you might not get as nice of an amp in a situation where it's a pack deal. So sometimes it's nice to piece things together. You can get a little nicer equipment.
Sure.
The quality of the guitars in the beginning range, the amplifiers in the beginning range, they're all nice. They do sound good. They play well. I shouldn't say they all play well. The guitar, speaking of the guitar, the amplifiers, generally, if you're looking at an amplifier in that $100 range, it's going to be a nice sounding guitar.
Sure.
Or guitar amp.
Sure. And that makes sense too. I mean, you know, what he's talking about, you see the importance of a guy like Paul and a store like Flatland Guitar and how important it is to your purchasing. You know, yes, you can always jump online and buy anything that you want. The problem with it is that you don't know whether or not what you're getting is absolutely right for you. And so, you know, things like this, it's nice to have a local guitar store where you can walk in and say, hey, you know, I'm looking for my first guitar, my first amp. You know, find someone who is patient and can help you with figuring out what it is that you need, and understand these things that Paul and I are talking about right now, where they're not trying to sell you, you know, an $800 guitar and a whatever amp when you don't really know what you're looking for right now. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean it in an honest way. You know, I've shared this with Paul many times, but you know, I used to work at a music store for many, many years. For almost 20 years, I worked at a music store, and I always told my customers that I was a horrible salesperson because and of course it was a joke, but my job wasn't to sell them the most expensive thing I had in the store. My job was to sell them the right thing for that particular customer, and Paul is very good at that. And so, you know, I can't stress enough how important it is that you find a local music store that really serves your purpose, and you know that the employers or the employees are looking out for your best interests. So, and
in most cases they will be.
Yeah.
You know, when you're looking at the guitar, when you pick the guitar up, first of all, you want it to be comfortable. You want it to sit well with you. You want to be able to reach everything on the guitar. The next important thing is, are the strings a mile off the fretboard?
Sure.
You know, the distance from the top of your frets here to so if you got to push it down a long ways, one, the guitar is not going to play in tune. And it's just going to be super uncomfortable to play. Mm-hmm. So when
I'm sorry, but that really isn't important, because you have to understand that not only buying the guitar is step one, but then practicing the guitar is step two, right? Which is really important. If you're fighting the instrument that you purchase, if it's a chore, like you laboriously have to press down on those strings, you're going to get frustrated. And of course, when you get frustrated, it doesn't help the journey of learning how to play. And so you want to make sure that guitar is really comfortable, so it encourages you to practice on a daily basis.
So if you're, you know, in a store, you can, and if you're not comfortable to really play on the guitar, have one of the employees or something, you know, play up and down the neck. Make sure there's no dead notes on the fretboard, because as you play up the neck, on some of the cheaper guitars, what you're going to find is a fret might pop out of the fretboard or something like that, and where they don't really look after the guitars too much. Mm-hmm.
And by fret, of course, he's talking about
metal bars.
The metal bars, yeah. Sometimes they stick out, like if they're not cared for or looked after. Sometimes those metal bars will start sticking out. Some will be higher than others, and they won't be even. And then the problem is when you try and play the guitar, it doesn't sound correct. Not all the notes are able to ring out like they're supposed to. And so again, these aren't things that you should be worried about. These are things that he should be worried about when he's selling you the guitar to make sure that it all functions properly. As a matter of fact, here's a prime example. I just purchased an acoustic guitar from Paul and brought it home, and I had a couple of issues with the guitar, and I brought it back to Paul, and Paul took 35 seconds and went like this and gave it back to me, and the guitar was perfectly fine. And so that's what his job is to make sure that those instruments are playable and functional and quality. And when I have an issue with something, just like you might have, you might get that guitar home and it needs some work, it needs something done with it. You can bring it right back to your local music store, and they're going to adjust that and fix that for you. If you buy it online, the problem is who are you going to bring it to when you have issues with things? And so for me, that person-to-person relationship of a music store of a guitar store is absolutely imperative, because I'm the one that has to play this. I'm the one that needs to be comfortable with it, and so that's really important. So
yeah. So that's just things you want to look for. You want to make sure the guitar plays right. And like I say, if you're just buying your first guitar, you probably don't know if it plays right or not. But when looking at the guitar yourself, even if you're not playing, you can look down at that fretboard, which is the playing surface of the guitar, and go, wow, that's and just by pushing a string down, going, that's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
And if you're just starting, it is gonna hurt, even if it plays great. But you get over that pretty quick.
Or if you have a relative or a friend that has been playing for a while, not somebody who just bought one and has been reading a guitar magazine, but somebody that's actually been playing for a while that can help you and grab the guitar and go, yeah, this one feels pretty good. It looks pretty good and all that sort of thing. So, okay, so we look at another style.
So that was your Strat style guitar. And probably the other most common guitar that you see around these days is your Les Paul style guitar. Gibson Les Paul would be the where that name comes from. Right.
Now notice the difference in the shape of the guitar.
This again is a very common beginning guitar. Very balanced. It sits in your lap. You don't really even have to hold it. It has a single cutaway, which is what this here is. And on the Strat, they had the two cutaways. Just a different look. It's not really anything functional about that double cutaway or single cutaway. And on this guitar, like on that other one, we had 3 single coil pickups. On this we have 2 humbucking pickups. This guitar would be more suited to those that say want to play rock music or into the metal vein of things, with the humbucking pickups on the distortion channels. Just much quieter, more pleasant sounding.
So without getting too complex, let's talk about single coil and humbucking pickups since we've mentioned that. What is the basic difference?
The basic difference, well, the first and most obvious difference is the size of the pickup. This is a humbucking pickup is essentially 2 pickups.
2 single coils.
2 single coil pickups put together, and without getting technical, they're humbucking pickups. The way that they're wound and put in there, they get rid of hum. What that hum is a 60 cycle, just an electrical current type sound.
with the one that we just looked at, the Strat, sometimes when you're adjusting the toggle switch that was down here, sometimes when you're switching that, you're going to notice if you have distortion on, you're going to notice it's getting buzz in some of the spots when you turn them. These were, I believe, initially created for that purpose, to get rid of that buzz. And so you'll notice if you have a guitar that has these, you're not going to have that buzz.
And then 2, they're also more of a, generally have a little more output. So they're going to drive your amp a little bit more. So for those playing rock, you generally want to have a little bit more output. You want your guitar to be a little louder, it's going to suit that style a little bit better.
Now, before you start going, oh, I want to play rock, and so that's what I need. Yes, that's true, but you can also get humbuckers on a Strat style body. And again, the question is, are those things that you really need to worry about when you're first buying a guitar? That's entirely up to you. If you get a Strat style body with single coil pickups in it, and then further down the line you decide that you like the humbucker style better or something like that, that's perfectly fine. Always remember that the most important 2 things is, number 1, it fits in your price range, and number two, that it's comfortable. You know, like for me, the guitars that I play, I absolutely have humbuckers, but I have a single coil in the middle. So I have 3, and the other thing is, for me, my switch isn't up here. My switch is down here like it is on the Strat style body. So mine is more like a Strat body. Everything about it is more Strat, but it does have the humbuckers for that extra output. And these are all things that some guitars have. All of these, the configurations go on and on and on and on, as you can see with all of these different guitars that are back here. They're all a little different from each other. So, and
that's something like with your first guitar, you don't want to get too in deep on, because it'll get confusing.
That is exactly right.
And rather than confuse your head with what the guitar is going to sound like, you can make your guitar sound however it's going to sound once you learn how to play the guitar.
That's right.
So I tend to steer people away from getting too crazy, and because you don't know which direction you're going to go. You're not sure where the guitar is going to take you.
Right.
And if you really haven't started playing yet, just get the most basic guitar you can get, because you can always upgrade, and you know, you're not putting a ton of money into your first guitar, and
you bet.
90% of the time you're gonna be able to trade that guitar in or sell it to a friend that wants to get going. So it's pretty easy to upgrade in that aspect. Right.
And the same could be said for the amps. You know, so again, there's so many variables in this beginning stage, and the goal for you is don't get sidetracked by all of these different things that really don't make any difference. You know, and I'm going to go back to the same analogy as my daughter learning how to drive. You know, she's got her permit. What she needs to be concerned with is the safety of and her ability to drive, not what she's driving, right? And so that's something that you need to think about with this guitar is making sure that whatever you get is comfortable and it is playable. And then as you keep moving up, boy, I remember when I was a kid, I went through guitars like dirty socks, man. I was so excited. So I had a guitar, and the guitar store that was Flatline wasn't around back then when I was a kid, but because he would have been a kid too. But you know, the guy was so nice, so I would buy a guitar and I'd bring it home and I'd be playing it, whatever, and then all of a sudden I'd want something else, so I'd trade it in and he'd give me a really good deal and I'd get something else. And I'm not sure that the second guitar was any better than the first guitar, but I was just really excited about trying different guitars. And so I probably went through 10 different guitars in that stage until I finally started realizing kind of what I wanted. I mean, I was very taken by the look of the guitar, right? I mean, it had a dragon on it, and all of a sudden I needed to have a guitar because it had a dragon on it. And so I understand how those things go. We're just trying to tell you what is most important, and then the rest of it is entirely up to you. You know, even things as easy as the guitar cable itself. You can walk into a guitar store and you can buy a guitar cable for $7, and you could buy a guitar cable for $70.
Easily.
Yeah. And so again, you know, it comes down to what do you need? You know, do you really need a $70 guitar cable when you first start learning how to play?
No.
Do you need a $70 guitar cable when you've been playing for 20 years? These are questions that you're going to have to ask yourself as you keep going, you know. But anyway, does that cover everything you think?
I think for the most part, yeah. And just on another note, real quickly, even, you know, like this guitar and that first guitar we started with, obviously they were both black.
Sure.
They come in several different colors, same models, you know, same price point, just different colors. So, you know, if you don't like a black guitar, you want a red guitar, you want a blue guitar, whatever, you know, they come in the different colors too. Right. So you can kind of suit yourself to your style per se, but still kind of keep yourself in check on the guitar.
Sure. I mean, it is important, right? I mean, you want the guitar to reflect whatever it is that you're trying to do, which is kind of nice. I mean, so if you like red versus black or blue or something like that, it's not going to hurt anything. It's just fine. So, awesome. Well, thank you, Paul. Hopefully that answers some questions for you. If you do have more questions, feel free to get a hold of us at the Facebook community site that GuitarZoom has. You can always contact us through there, or go to the guitarzoom.com site and you can put in a support question, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you've got to help you on your journey. So take care, and we'll speak to you soon.
You bet.